this is definitely not a time to rebuild. They have the pieces, with Fred VanVleet, OG Siakam, Trent, Malachi, Jalen Harris. That's some good players to have in their core. But it's all about retooling. Hello and welcome to the Monday, May 17th edition of the TV on Basketball Podcast with your host, TV. Hope you're all having a fantastic day today, and thank you for clicking on to watch or listen to today's episode. Before we start, I have to plug my other platforms. Remember to follow at TV on Basketball on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram for updates on the podcast and for other awesome content. For all my podcast listeners, remember to subscribe and leave a review if you're on Apple, and just show your love on any other platform that you listen to me on. And if you're on YouTube, remember to like, share, and subscribe. Hit the notification bell so you won't miss an episode. On Friday, I recorded an awesome episode with Tony Tucker from Project Drivel, also a part of the Warzone Sports Network, as we made our picks for the NBA Awards, so you should go definitely check that out. But in today's episode, I'm going to be talking about the Hall of Fame ceremony and the new class of 2021. Going to be talking about the Raptors as well and what they should do this coming offseason. And then finally, we're going to be previewing the play-in games for the week. I do have a guest lined up for the Friday episode where we will make our predictions for the playoffs, so you definitely won't want to miss out on that. And on Monday, I might have another guest as well to discuss just some other playoff questions. So it's going to be an awesome week in terms of NBA content. And I also might be putting out a video on Wednesday, so definitely be on the lookout for that as well. Thank you guys for all your support on the podcast as of late. And yeah, I really do appreciate all of you. And as we head into the playoffs, just expect more and more content. But yeah, since we got that out the way, let's get right into the first topic. And that is the Hall of Fame ceremony we're going to start off with. Because over the weekend, the 2020 inductees to the Basketball Hall of Fame finally got inducted with very notable names. You also have Kevin Garnett, obviously, Tim Duncan and Kobe Bryant as the headliners for that class. Then you also have people like Rudy Tomjanovich, who led the Rockets to 2 championships in the mid-90s, also a part of that. And yeah, it was just a really, really good ceremony. And again, congratulations to all the people there. I do want to talk about the highlights of that night, though. Starting off with KG. His speech was pretty good. It was probably shorter than Tim Duncan's and Vanessa Bryant's. But, lots of thank yous. He literally went through his whole career. Even, shouted out the Nets, even though he was there for 1 year only. He said sorry to the city of Minnesota for not bringing them a championship. And all I can say for that, KG, is that you can only do so much. He won MVP. He was one of the best power forwards in the NBA, and there's only so much you could do because that team just did not do enough to put things around you. Yeah, that was a good speech. I think it was under 10 minutes, so it was a good way to start the night with someone as prominent as Kevin Garnett. Was one of the best players in the league, obviously, in the Timberwolves, won a championship with the Celtics. Very historic career, one of the best power forwards of all time, so congrats to him. Tim Duncan, man, his speech, obviously people were going to make fun of the fact that maybe he was going to go really short just because Tim Duncan doesn't talk much, but he did talk a lot in this one. It was a really, really nice speech he gave out. Shouted out his family in the Virgin Islands, who, after his island got hit with a pretty bad hurricane and destroyed his pool because Tim Duncan wanted to be a professional swimmer, he turned to basketball, and man, what a career he's had. In my opinion, top 10 player all time. Come at me, he is that good of a player, one of my favorite players of all time. He talked about his time in Wake Forest, obviously his time with the Spurs. He had David Robinson on stage with him. He was the one who walked him up on stage, which is absolutely fantastic. Shout out Monty Ginobili and Tony Parker, who were both sitting beside each other at the ceremony, which was really nice. And then obviously he ended it off with Popovich, who he talked about as being one of the best people in his life, helping him a lot. He said that he's kind of like unlike any other coach. One of the stories that stuck out to me during Tim Duncan's speech is that Pop visited his family on his island after his mother died, and then like he was there like speaking to each of and every one of his family members, trying to develop a relationship with them. And Tim Duncan will be grateful for he what what Greg Popovich did for him, and honestly, Greg Popovich, one of the greatest coaches of all time, but you could just tell he knows how to connect with his players on an emotional level, and Tim Duncan talked about it a lot. So congratulations to Tim Duncan, and man, honestly, that was a good speech. Hopefully for Manu and Tony Parker, they will be up there in the near future. And then the Kobe Bryant speech, man. The Kobe Bryant speech. Yeah, it was definitely emotional. Vanessa Bryant spoke on behalf of Kobe Bryant. Michael Jordan helped walk her up into stage as we knew that. And man, it was hard because Vanessa was talking about how great of a husband he was and how he affected so many people. Obviously, us fans, we know like he was the Michael Jordan of our generation. He was a guy people just knew in the NBA community, and he was just like a larger than life figure. All those game winners, all those moments. I mean, Kobe Bryant embodied basketball in the pure sense. I mean, Kobe Bryant was a fantastic player. And what I really liked about Vanessa's speech is that she didn't want to do the speech like Kobe tried to do it. I mean, she tried to make it her own, and instead of kind of thanking individuals, she wanted to thank kind of the collective that helped build up Kobe Bryant. Whether it was the Lakers, whether it was his high school, Lord Marion, whether it was just the people around him. I mean, she didn't single anyone out. She thanked everyone. She thanked all the fans. And if anything, it was more of a love letter to Kobe Bryant, which is absolutely fantastic. And honestly, just the reaction there, the fact, Kevin Garnett at the end of his speech said, thank you to Timmy D and Kobe for, bringing out the competitive side of him. I mean, he's affected so many people in his life. And sadly, it had to come to an abrupt end, and it still kind of shocks me to this day that it happened. But at this point, we got to just appreciate what he has done in the short time he was on planet Earth, and he made a massive impact. And Vanessa's speech really did encapsulate that. She also spoke on how much she was a great girl dad to Natalia, to Gigi, who was also part of that crash, R.I.P. And yeah, Vanessa did a great job just doing this as a love letter to Kobe, making this a focus of Kobe. She didn't have to thank. Of course, she did her thanks, but it was more of a general thanks. And yeah, it was a really, really good speech. I recommend you guys should go check it out. I think it's on YouTube, so yeah, good for them. Other guys that were in the Hall of Fame who had their speeches that night, besides the three guys I just mentioned, Eddie Sutton, like I said, Rudy Tomjanovich, Tamika Catchings, one of the best WNBA players of all time, 10-time WNBA All-Star. Kim Mulkey, 20-year head coach for the Baylor women's team, and Barbara Stevens as well, another coach, Division II coach, I believe, and Patrick Baumann, who was a FIBA executive in the past. So congratulations to all of them. Now moving on to the 21-21 class, because the day after, they announced the members there. And if you remember my podcast episode from a couple months ago, there were four guys that I really want to get in, and I think that this is a perfect time for them too. Ben Wallace, Paul Pierce, Chris Bosh, and Chris Webber. And luckily enough, all four guys made it. Bosh and Pierce, I believe they were first ballot. If not, Bosh was second ballot. Ben Wallace was there for a couple years as well, so it kind of took him a while to get there. But I want to focus on Chris Webber because he was on the ballot since 2013, and man, he's been waiting and waiting for this moment to get there, and he finally made it. 5-time NBA All-Star, 5-time NBA All-NBA. Like, this guy was one of the best forwards of the 2000s, and mixed in with that, him being part of the Fab Five, I thought that he was a no-brainer to get into the NBA Hall of Fame. Rookie of the Year as well. but he just never did, which was highly, highly unfortunate. But now he's finally getting his respect. He finally is in the Hall of Fame. Man, is a good moment for them. I think their ceremony is going to be held later on this year. So, yeah, congratulations to them. I've talked about Ben Wallace, Paul Pierce, and Chris Bosh in the past. Ben Wallace was basically the Dennis Rodman of the 2000s. I think he has the most defensive player of the years of all time. Never averaged 10 points a game in in any of his seasons, but his impact was there, especially on the 2004 Pistons teams. Paul Pierce, I know people really want to crap on him. Pun definitely intended. But multiple time All-Star, one of the best forwards of the 2000s, to be honest. I mean, if there's there are very few players that you want at the end of the game with the ball in their hands, and Paul Pierce was one of them. 10-time All-Star, 4-time All-NBA. In his only championship, he was the Finals MVP. Fantastic career. Congratulations to Paul Pierce. And then finally, this one hits close to home. Chris Bosh, the Bostrich, finally is actually in the Hall of Fame now, which is absolutely fantastic. Wish he had a longer career, man, but those blood clots really did hurt the end of his career. But still, 11-time All-Star, 2-time NBA champion with the Miami Heat. Made the All-NBA second team with the Raptors in 2007. He was just a very, very good player. Was the number one guy there for the Raptors for a long time. But then he had to have a reduced role with the Heat, and he played that to perfection. He was also there for probably the greatest play in Miami Heat history, where he grabbed a rebound and kicked it out to Ray Allen to tie the game in Game 6 of the 2013 NBA Finals, I would like to say that. Or 2012 NBA Finals. Whatever it was, but man, I'm excited for him to be there, and I can't wait to see the ceremony later on in the year. Also, players that are going to be inducted this year: Rick Adelman, head coach, lots of success, one of the more winningest. I think that's the word. Head coaches in NBA history, so congratulations to him. Villanova head coach Jay Wright is also going to be inducted to the Hall of Fame. Congratulations to him. Bill Russell, not as a player, but as a coach. If I think a lot of people do know this, but if you don't know, he was a player coach for the Celtics for a few of their championship runs. So, congratulations to Bill Russell. And for the WNBA, you have Yolanda Griffith and Lauren Johnson. Congratulations to them. Yolanda Griffith, shout out to her. 7-time All-Star, was the MVP in 1999 for the WNBA. So, one of the better players in WNBA history. Congratulations to her. And then Lauren Jackson. I mean, another, one of the WNBA's all-time greats. Played for the majority of the 2000s. A 3-time MVP. Was the number 1 overall pick for the Seattle Storm. 7-time All-Star. Averaged 19 and 8 in her career. Man, she was a great player. Congratulations to her for making it to the Hall of Fame. So yeah, that ceremony is going to happen later on in the year, and hopefully we get to see more people in the crowd, because it was great to see people in the crowd for this ceremony. With COVID, I don't want to go too much into this, but the vaccinations are coming out. We're slowly getting to normal life, so good news there. Well, let's move on to this. The Toronto Raptors, yes. This is probably going to be the last Raptor rundown, because we're going to be talking a lot about the playoffs here. But this is not really a Raptor rundown, except more of a Raptors season in review. Because this year they finished 12th in the East, and they had very difficult circumstances to overcome. Obviously, they got to stay in Tampa because of the border policies that still haven't been lifted, because COVID is still a thing. They had that to deal with, living in hotels basically the entire season. They had to deal with COVID protocols at the worst time once they started getting things going. Obviously, a bunch of injuries to Anunoby, Siakam, Lowry, Van Vliet. Basically, everyone in the roster was injured at some point. The trades, obviously, bringing in Gary Trent this year, trading away Norman Powell. There were a lot of things that kind of went wrong for the Raptors, and it was a bad season, a disappointing season too. I mean, as much as these things have affected the Raptors, I still think they're a good enough team that they should have overcame those things and at least became, at least in the play-in tournament. But In terms of what's next for this team, going into the season, they have $24 million in cap room. I don't know how much they're going to sign Gary Trent. I'm assuming somewhere between $15 to $17 million. They have the 7th best odds at the number 1 pick this year. And man, there's a lot of things that they could do with the cap room that they have. And I want to focus on this because a lot of people are kind of debating whether the Raptors should rebuild or retool. And like I mentioned at the top of it, I mean, I hinted at it. The Raptors are a good enough team to make the playoffs. This is definitely not a time to rebuild. They have the pieces, with Fred VanVleet, OG Siakam, Trent, Malachi, Jalen Harris. That's some good players to have in their core. But it's all about retooling. And this team needs a massive retooling in terms of what they need to address. Because that set of position this year was a big problem. And it wasn't even really stabilized until they brought in Kem Birch and Freddie Gillespie for the last 15, 20 games of the season. So yeah, that was not a good thing because Aaron Baines, man, I was excited for him coming into the season, but he has played horribly. But nothing to fear. The Raptors still have a draft pick coming their way. Not a lot of big men in the top 10, but there are a lot of possible scenarios I could see the Raptors going with. In terms of draft, I mean, if the Raptors get a top 2 pick, Evan Mobley should be the number 1 priority. A center who has freakishly good defensive capabilities. May need to work on his offense a bit, but he could become an absolute superstar. But with Kyle Lowry most likely leaving in a sign-and trade, there will be another guard spot open. So, Cade Cunningham, if they get a top pick, could be an option. Of course, any of the Jalen Suggs, Jalen Green. But even if the Raptors stay at 7, players like Moses Moody, Keon Johnson, Zaire Williams, there are some good options for the Raptors. But the Raptors should just continue to build a young core. For the longest time, at least as they were competing for a championship, they were one of the oldest teams in basketball. And now they're kind of shifting away from that, trying to go with the young core. And it's time to get players within their timeline. So yeah, Kyle Lowry likely to leave. I don't know what the sign and trade possibilities could be. Maybe to the Philadelphia 76ers. Maybe they could bring in like a Tyrese Maxey or something. Who knows? But man, there is a lot of changes to changes. There's gonna be a lot of changes to this Raptors team come next year. Trent is gonna be a restricted free agent, so I'm expecting somewhere like a $60 million 4-year deal, maybe a $70 million 5-year deal. Who knows? But Trent's gonna get quite a bit of money for him to stick around. And the Raptors, either a guard or a center, is going to be a massive priority come draft time. And this draft is pretty big in terms of like just the top players. There's obviously 5 guys that a lot of people want to talk about in terms of Cunningham, Mobley, Jalen Green, Suggs, and Jonathan Kuminga. And the Raptors have a good chance at it, to be honest. I mean, with the flat and odds, the Raptors have a 26% chance or I think a 30% chance at a top 4 pick. So hoping as a Raptor fan that the ping pong balls go our way. But in terms of free agency, I mean, the Raptors have, are gonna have some room. I would like to bring back Kem Birch next year as kind of a backup role, because we also have Freddie Gillespie as well. But if you want to go with some more big man, maybe Daniel Theis, although is not a young guy, he could definitely help out the team. Kelly Olynyk as well, fellow Canadian guy. May not help out defensively, but he could grab rebounds, and he's actually a pretty decent offensive player. But honestly, my dream signing in terms of just someone who can grab rebounds, who will play hard, who will just like play hard all the time. Rashawn Holmes for me is a really good option. Maybe he doesn't help with the size issue because he's only like 6'9", 6'10" as well. But he'll grab rebounds. He could finish through contact in the paint, something that the Raptors were lacking this year. But Raptor fans, no need to panic. No need to panic. The Raptors had a tough year this year. We're going to bring them back to Toronto. We're going to have them, Freddie VanVleet said he missed no frills in an interview earlier this season. So the Raptors coming home. Obviously, Kyle Lowry is going to be most likely going to be gone, which is going to suck. But this is the new era of the Raptors. We're going to have to embrace it. I'm hoping to see a lot more growth next season in terms of Pascal Siakam and OG Anunoby. OG Anunoby took a big leap this year, and I'm expecting him to continue to grow. Siakam had a pretty good bounce back year, but he really needs to work on his consistency in the clutch. Fred VanVleet has to work on his consistency in general, but there's some good pieces there. I think that's what the point I'm trying to get across here. And with the guys that we have signed long term, I think that the Raptors are kind of comfortable going forward with this team. Hopefully, we can have like a superstar changing player at this year's draft, but I wouldn't like rest all my expectations on that pick. But there's a lot of things the Raptors could do. We have to continue to trust in Masai, trust the coaching staff, and hopefully things go well for this Toronto Raptors team. Hoping for the best. It sucks that the Raptors have not made the playoffs for the first time in 8 years, but I think this is a good thing in terms of hoping to move forward, especially with the draft we could possibly have. But yeah, Raptor fans, the end of this season, but there's a lot to look forward to next season. Especially if we can get the right guy in the draft. Come on, Raptors. Let's hope those ping pong balls go our way. But let's move on to this. The Raptors, like I mentioned earlier, they have the talent enough to even get into the play-in tournament, but they couldn't do it this year. It was just a mess of a season. But let's talk about the play-in tournament, because after basically the whole regular season, we still had no idea what the play-in tournament was going to look like, or even, like, honestly, most of the playoff seeds were going to look like. But now we know how it's going to go. And in this topic, I'm basically just going to be predicting what I think is going to happen in the play-in tournament. It starts tomorrow night on Tuesday, and it should end on Friday. I know when I record with my guests on Thursday, I know one of the play-in games are not going to be done. But we're going to kind of, like, work around it, because at least we're going to know who the 7th seed is. But yeah, we're going to go through each of these play-in games and kind of give my preview and who I think is going to win. And ultimately, who's going to be the 7 and 8 seeds going into this year's NBA playoffs. We're going to start in the East. Let's start in the East. Because the first matchup I do want to talk about is the 10 versus 9 matchup. The Charlotte Hornets taking on the Indiana Pacers. Both teams have had their own struggles. The Pacers have had internal struggles the entire season, apparently, in the report from Woj. I mean, not a lot of people like Nick Bjorkgren, or there's just like a lot of in-house fighting in that organization. It's like, because it's Indiana, it just won't get talked about much. That's why not a lot of people have been talking about it. And in terms of the Hornets, I mean, they've had a good year. I think this is a successful year getting into this play-in tournament. But man, did they struggle at the end of the season. They ended off the season on a 5-game losing streak. It's good that they have LaMelo Ball back, but he still hasn't really looked right. He doesn't look 100%. But luckily for this Hornets game as well, I think that Miles Bridges is back because he played last game. So they should be near full strength, obviously without Gordon Hayward, which is highly, highly unfortunate. In this game, I think that in this pressure game, I think experience matters, and the Pacers have been here before. But. The Pacers are just not in the right place right now. I don't think Miles Turner is going to be back for this play-in tournament. Michael Brogdon is still iffy, but I do believe he will be back for this play-in game. But I just think that the Pacers, there's just something wrong with that team. And I just don't think that there have just been many situations this year where we think the Pacers are going to kind of finally get out of their funk and stuff like that. But they haven't. They really haven't. And in this one-game scenario, I think the Pacers are going to fold, and although the Hornets are not at 100%, they're still one of the most clutch teams in basketball. They just got back one of their breakout players this year, Miles Bridges. I think they're going to pull out the win here. I really do. An extra day of rest for LaMelo Ball is going to be really nice here, but yeah, this is going to be a really, really interesting game. I do believe it if it comes close. The Hornets with the players like Terry Rozier, like LaMelo Ball, I think they're going to be able to win this game if it gets close very late. But the Pacers, if they're going to win this game, they're going to have to go through Sabonis, because I don't think anyone on the Hornets team is going to be able to handle him. PJ Washington, 100% sure is not. Same thing with Cody Zeller. Same thing with Bismack Biyombo. If the Pacers are going to win this game, they're going to have to go through Sabonis, and that's where it's going to hurt the Hornets the most. But same thing with the Hornets. I mean, the Pacers are an average team on both ends. They got to hit them with their three-man backcourt in terms of Devontae Graham, Terry Rozier, and LaMelo Ball. They're going to have to exploit their average defense and put up some points. And try to keep it close and win these games late like they have been all season. So if I had to choose for this game, I'm going with the Hornets winning this matchup. Now let's go to the 7-8 seed game for the East. The Boston Celtics versus the Washington Wizards. And man, the Boston Celtics are beaten up. And honestly, I still don't know who's going to be ready for this game. Tatum probably is going to be ready. Like, I'm still not sure about Kemba, Robert Williams, Marcus Smart. I don't know. I still don't know. But they're going up against the Wizards, who were on a tear this last month and a half of the season to get him into the 8th seed. You know, Bradley Beal is finally healthy. Maybe not 100%, but I think that he'll still play very hard in this play-in tournament. Russell Westbrook has been an absolute tear. They've been getting some good production out of players like Ish Smith, Robin Lopez, and stuff like that. This team, the Wizards team, just has peaked at the right time, and that's very, very good. Now, assuming both teams are healthy, obviously the Celtics without Jaylen Brown for the rest of the season because of the wrist injury, or I think some sort of arm injury. But what do we know about both these teams? The Wizards, like every Russell Westbrook team, is combustible. When it comes to playoff time, they're either gonna be looking like one of the best teams in basketball, or they're gonna look like a team like, why are they even here? And that's the thing about a Westbrook-led team. Like, you just don't know which version you're going to get. Sure, they've been winning a lot of games here, but when it comes to playoff time, this Russell Westbrook team could be very, very erratic. And in a one-game scenario, you cannot be having the bad side of that team if you're going to want to win. Especially with the Celtics team, who have been in the playoffs ever since Tatum has been a rookie. And Tatum has just continued to get better. If Kemba Walker's available, that's another guy that the Wizards have to deal with, and the Wizards are still not a great defensive team. So here it is. I mean, talent-wise, the Celtics should be better, but they have not been playing well, and that's fair enough. The Wizards, they're less talented, but they have the form right now to basically beat anyone in this play-in tournament. For me, this is a toss-up, but in terms of a one-game scenario, trying to get into a play-in, I have the Celtics. I have the Celtics winning this game. They just have a lot of good offensive weapons, even without Jaylen Brown. Again, this is assuming that most of the guys that I expect to be healthy will be ready for this game. So, Marcus Smart, Robert Williams, or Kemba Walker. If one of them are out, I'm going to be kind of a bit more iffy, but I'm assuming these guys should be healthy and ready for at least this game. I think the Celtics are going to pull this off. The Wizards have been on a roll, yes, and a lot of people are going to take the Wizards because of the form they're in. But I think in this one-game scenario, when you have someone like a Jason Tatum and hopefully a Kemba Walker, hopefully he's ready for this game, those are two guys that can hit big shots late. They've done it in the playoffs as well. They have the experience here, and I think that that's going to trump the Wizards in this one. So I have the Celtics winning. Now let's go into that matchup afterwards, because obviously that means the Celtics are going to have the 7th seed. And now for the battle of the 8th seed, the Wizards versus the Hornets. And who I think is going to win this game? I have the Wizards. I'm just going to go straight up with it. I have the Wizards winning that one. Russell Westbrook, I said before the season, I was very, very iffy on the Wizards team if it's going to actually work. But the quote that I always put to the ground in terms of a Russell Westbrook-led team is that I trust them. I trust their heart enough to just make it to an 8th seed. And I think that will be the case here. The star duo of Bradley Beal and Russell Westbrook, I think it's going to be too much for the Hornets to handle. I think the Russell Westbrook is going to continue to play hard the entire game. And I think that the Hornets, with their lack of defense and without Gordon Hayward, I expect, honestly, for the rest of the season, it's going to be extremely rough to kind of go tick for tack in terms of offensive firepower against the Washington Wizards with those two guys leading the backcourt. I mean, the Hornets, again, if they keep it close, they know how to hit shots late. But with Russell Westbrook and Bradley Beal both wanting to at least have a chance at a playoff matchup, I see that happening. Now, like I said earlier, the Wizards could beat the Celtics, and honestly, I would actually want that instead. If that wasn't my prediction, I would want the Wizards to win just because I want to see KD versus Russ. But yeah, I don't think Russell Westbrook is going to miss on 2 opportunities to go into the playoffs. So if it's an 8-9 matchup, I have the Wizards winning. They got the 2 stars. They got the 2 best players on the court. I think that should be good enough to beat the Hornets, especially when they don't have a clear inside presence that could exploit an Alex Len or a Robin Lopez. So, yeah, if it comes to 8-9, I think the Wizards are going to get the 8 seed. Now let's move on to the West. And there's one matchup that's going to be very, very intriguing. But we'll get that after. Let's talk about the San Antonio Spurs versus the Memphis Grizzlies, the 10-9 matchup. The Spurs, man. The Spurs have struggled. They have struggled a lot to end the season. The last 10 games, they went 2-8. And the Grizzlies, I mean, I know they lost to the Warriors in their last game, but they ended off the season strong. Finished off the season 38-34. They had a good year. One of the Grizzlies' strengths that they really couldn't take advantage of against that Warriors team was their inside presence. And mostly because the Warriors just shot a bunch of threes on them and they just couldn't catch up. But against the San Antonio Spurs, I don't see that as an issue. The Spurs are a bottom 10 team in shooting, along with the Memphis Grizzlies. And I think the Grizzlies, with a front court of Jaren Jackson Jr. and Jonas Valanciunas, going up against who? Like DeMar DeRozan, who has been their power forward, and Jakob Poeltl. I see the Grizzlies winning this matchup. Ja Morant did not play good in that final game versus Steph Curry, which is highly unfortunate because in that game, he scored only 16 points on 21 shots. I mean, that was pretty ugly. But I think he's going to have a good game here. Especially, like, this is literally win or go home in this scenario. The Spurs have struggled a lot. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if the Spurs won just because they're just able to pull out these type of wins out of their bag. But the Grizzlies, they know how it feels like to lose out on this opportunity last year when they lost to the Trailblazers in a very, very thrilling game. But in this matchup against the San Antonio Spurs, I got to see the Grizzlies taking it this one and at least extending their season by another game. So, yeah, the Grizzlies are going to win this 10-9 matchup. Now, this is the game that everyone is excited for. The Golden State Warriors versus the Los Angeles Lakers in a 7-8 matchup. This is the prize fight. Steph Curry versus LeBron. Winner gets the 8 seed. The only way that this could get any better if this is a winner go home. But obviously that's not the case, but this is still going to be a very, very entertaining game. When you start on the Warrior side of things, obviously they are a very good defensive team, and they have arguably the best player in basketball right now in Steph Curry. Last game, man, Steph Curry, 46 points, 9 threes. I mean, his shooting percentages were not the best. 16 for 36, 9 for 22 on threes. But, man, this guy was dominant. This guy was absolutely dominant. And he is the one guy you do not want to see going off in elimination games. So that's that for the Warrior side. Obviously, they still have Wiggins, who's been playing well this season. Draymond Green, the anchor of their defense. This team will play hard. But we're talking about the defending champions here, the Los Angeles Lakers. And for me, their biggest advantage in this matchup is not LeBron James. It's Anthony Davis. Because with no James Wiseman there, and I know that James Wiseman would probably get cooked by AD still, but they got no inside presence. Anthony Davis is probably playing the best basketball he has played all season long. And look, he is a top 5 NBA player at his best when he isn't healthy, when he's healthy. But the problem is obviously his health is the big issue. But going into this game, he's healthy. He's still one of the best players in basketball. And I don't think the Warriors are going to have a answer for Anthony Davis in this matchup. And that's not to mention LeBron, because I have a feeling that either Draymond or Wiggins is going to front LeBron this entire game. And LeBron is still going to have a pretty good game. But the focus here for the Lakers is trying to get Anthony Davis going and just dominate the inside, where the Warriors, that is their weakest point of their defense. And in terms of Lakers trying to defend Steph Curry, they're going to throw multiple bodies at him. Whether it's Caruso to basically press him full court, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, Taylor Horton-Tucker, whoever it is on the court, they are going to have to front Steph Curry every single second of the game. No, never lose sight of him. And if they could slow him down, even like keep him to 30 points in this game, I think that is a W for them. Because I think the Lakers are a good enough team where they're going to be able to get enough offense, and their defense is just good in general for them to pull out the win. This is the one game I'm going to be extremely excited to watch. But if I had to predict, I have the Lakers pulling it out, and they're going to be the 7th seed. Now let's go to this 7-8 matchup, this 8-9 matchup between the Warriors versus the Grizzlies. And like I mentioned earlier, we just saw this game last night or Sunday night, Sunday afternoon, whenever you're listening to this podcast. Here we go again, and they have a fresh scouting report from that Sunday afternoon game. What did the Warriors take advantage of against the Grizzlies? They're struggling three-point shooting. At one point, Steph Curry had more threes than the entire Grizzlies team, and that was like midway through the third quarter. So that just shows that the Grizzlies, they don't have a reliable three-point shooter. The Warriors will shoot as many threes as possible. And what's good for the Lakers is that their supporting cast is helping out a lot. One of them being Jordan Poole, who has been absolutely great at to end off the season. But one of the biggest matchups to watch for in here is Dillon Brooks versus Steph Curry. Dillon Brooks in this last game actually played really, really well. The only problem is that he fouled out midway through the fourth quarter, and that basically signaled the end for this Grizzlies team because the Grizzlies fought back in this game, and Dillon Brooks was a huge part of it. But last year, and I think this is a stat that they brought up on the broadcast, last year he led the league in fouls. This year, same thing. Dillon Brooks has a problem fouling people, and in that game, it really did cost the Grizzlies because they had a 2-point lead at some point in the fourth quarter. Then the Warriors got going, and they just couldn't, and the Grizzlies just couldn't stop the bleeding. Now, the Grizzlies are still one of the best defenses in the league. Taylor Jenkins has proven to get that out of his players. They're the 6th best defense. And honestly, they're an average offense. But the issue is that they're bottom 10 in both 3-point field goals, 3-point field goal percentage, and field goal attempts, 3-point field goal attempts. And the Warriors will just shoot all over them if they give them the opportunity. The Grizzlies are not going to be able to match up with that, which is going to be something to watch. But in this game, Steph Curry will not be losing will not be losing this win or go home game. I have the Warriors winning this. Feels like a basic answer, but I'm not going to overthink this one. The Warriors will win it. The Warriors know the weakness of the Grizzlies, and the Grizzlies couldn't even play to their strengths because the Warriors just outworked them on the inside as well, just playing harder. Obviously, I think the Grizzlies are going to be more prepared if this matchup does happen again. But the Warriors, at the end of the day, one of the best 3-point shooting teams in the league. They got Steph Curry. I think that is a fair enough reason to say that they're going to win this game if it does come down to it. So, yeah. So, as final thoughts, in the East, I have the Celtics with the 7th seed in the East, the Wizards with the 8th seed, and in the West, Lakers with the 7th seed, Warriors with the 8th seed. Pretty basic. I think a lot of people are going to predict this as well. But let me know down below what you guys think. Who's going to come out the play-in tournament, and what seeds are they going to be? Before we end up this episode, we're going to do some other news and notes. Dwayne Casey got a contract extension from the Detroit Pistons until the 2023-2024 season, so it's going to run through that. What surprised me here is when teams are going into a rebuilding phase, they usually want a new voice, kind of a new coach. But no, the Pistons are sticking with Dwayne Casey. I think they see that he's doing a good job developing the young guys. Sadiq Bey had a pretty good season this year, Isaiah Stewart, and they still got some guys there in Killian Hayes and Jeremy Grant. So I think the Pistons like what they see from Dwayne Casey, and they're keeping him long-term for quite a bit. So I think that's another 3 seasons. So, yeah, congrats to Dwayne Casey. And then another news that came out this week is that Dwight Howard was actually suspended the last game of the regular season due to getting his 16th technical foul. And with the 76ers wanting to go in on deep playoff run, it's very important to note that every 2 techs that Dwight Howard gets in this playoffs, he will miss 1 game, which could be absolutely crucial to the 76ers playoff run. And other things, here's some other guys that actually are on the barrier, kind of on the edge of about to miss a couple of games in the playoffs. Luka Doncic, like I mentioned in multiple episodes, he has 15 technical fouls, so 1 more technical, he's going to miss a game. And that could be detrimental to the Mavericks' playoff chances if he does get a technical foul. Other players who are kind of on the brink of getting suspended. Draymond Green, 14 technical fouls. Obviously, there's he still needs 2 more techs, but Draymond, that is definitely not out of the possibility. Same thing with Russell Westbrook. He has 40 technical fouls on the season, and he is 2 away from being suspended as well. That's something to look out for because these players, whether it's Doncic, Howard, Draymond, or Russ, these can change series. I mean, Howard may be less of an impact, but in terms of Doncic, Draymond, and Russell, they are extremely valuable to their team. So if they want to stay on the floor, they're going to have to keep a level head, even if the fouls aren't going their way. But yeah, those are the other news and notes. Let me know what you guys think on the PlayIn tournament, what the Raptors should do next. Your thoughts on this year's Hall of Fame class, just let me know down below. But I think this is where we're going to end this episode. Thank you guys for watching or listening. Remember to show love on all the podcast channels. Like, share, and subscribe if you're on YouTube. And hit the notification bell so you won't miss a video. And remember to follow at TV on Basketball on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram for some awesome content. Again, during the playoffs, I'm actually going to try to use Twitter a lot more to kind of tweet my reactions throughout the games. So just follow me on there. Expect some awesome IG content. I'm thinking of new series to do going into this playoffs. And yeah, I just want to thank you guys for all the support you've been giving to this channel. And just expect a lot more great NBA playoff content going into the playoffs. But yeah, this is where we're going to end things. Thank you guys for watching or listening. Hope you have a fantastic day. TV signing out. Take it easy, guys. Peace.